You're listening to
Sound.
Insightful.
Bible teaching.
For a
Meaningful.
For a meaningful Christian walk.
Okay, welcome everyone. Tonight we're going to start getting into the pictures in the book of Exodus. And the Old Testament is a picture book, and it's also a storybook. So we're going to tell some stories tonight, which I like. How do you get this thing? This is like a pen. Everybody, your tuition money is not being used wisely. I don't know what they're spending it on. Hang on. Forget it. Okay. I don't need that thing. So, the book of Exodus, what's it a story of? You know what the word Exodus means? It's like get out. Let's leave. So this is a story of the nation of Israel, the children of Israel leaving Egypt. And so the question is, how did they get in Egypt in the first place? I put verses down every week. I generally don't read them with you, not because they're not important. I spend some time to figure out the best verses. But you can see on your own. Israel was in slavery in Egypt. And they were in slavery in Egypt. Depends where you start counting, but maybe like 400 years. So it was a long time. And they wanted to escape from slavery. But why? I mean, no one would say, hey, let's move to Egypt. We can be slaves there. I mean, that would be foolish. So what happened is, the forefather of the nation of Israel was Abraham. He, had a son, Isaac, and Isaac had 12 sons. Isaac had 2, Jacob and Esau, and Jacob had 12. And Jacob, with his 12 sons, it's a long story, you can read it in Genesis. Eventually, the land they were in, there was a famine, and they were starving. Actually, they weren't really starving. They still had some things to eat. But they said, let's go down to Egypt. And we'd seen Egypt a few other times in Genesis. Sometimes they would go down to Egypt when they needed something. Usually when there's a famine, because Egypt might have food. Egypt in the Bible typifies the world. And we all live in the world, but you got to realize in the Bible, when we talk about the world, it's not something positive. The world is, and it's very clear in the New Testament. I've got one verse on here, 1 John 2:15. It says, do not love the world nor the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in him. But we're all in the world. And in a sense, the world provides things for us. So they needed food, they went to the world. This happened with Abraham, happened with Isaac. They needed something, so they would go down to Egypt. Egypt typifies the world. The whole world lies in the evil one. And actually, the world is his kingdom. This is kind of bad. We want to be in the kingdom of God, right? But this world, the ruler of this age, the ruler of this world right now is the devil. You could say he's not the rightful ruler, and that's fine. It kind of doesn't matter. He's the ruler of this age. So if we depend on Egypt, eventually, this is a picture, just like the children of Israel were enslaved, we will be enslaved. What does that look like? Well, I mean, how many people, we're free, right? You're not a slave, are you? Are you sure? How about Sydney? Zach? Yeah. So if the world is, if Egypt is the world, then the ruler of Egypt is Pharaoh. And the ruler of this world is the devil. So Pharaoh is a picture, is a type of Satan. We're in the world, and the world is opposed to God. When the Lord Jesus was tempted after fasting for 40 days, the devil came to him, and one of the things he tempted him with, he showed him the whole world. all the things in the world. And he said properly, correctly, he said, basically, this is all mine, and I'll give it all to you if you'll worship me. And, you know, I think if you were presented with that choice, Matt, the devil came to you and said, I'll give you the whole world, just worship me. Would you say yes or no? You'd say no, right? The devil is a lot more subtle than that. Okay, tonight it's Wednesday night, right? I don't know what's going on the campus. I'm sure there's other things going on. At least there's, you know, movies, maybe there's some parties, you got friends, or maybe you need to study. Well, I got a midterm coming up in 3 weeks. I better start studying for that now. So someone calls you up, are you going to come, you know, to the higher ground? It's like, I don't know, I got a midterm in 3 weeks. And it's pretty important. It's one of 5 midterms, and it counts, you know, 8% of my grade. I better be right on top of it. So I think I'm going to miss just this week and next week and the week after, and until I take the midterm. But then there's another midterm. Okay, well, anyway. Well, we'll still have our Bible study together. Sure, I would not forsake that. Except I got a paper due by the end of the semester. And I don't have a topic yet. I better start spending some time on that. And then it's like, maybe I need a job. You know, I better get a part-time job, get some money, because I want to buy some things, you know. Pretty soon, all of your time is taken. And then, this is while you're a student. After you're a student, it's worse. I mean, right now, what's your motivation for studying? Grades. Okay, grades. What do grades get you?
Degree.
Huh?
A degree.
A what? A degree. But wouldn't it be better to graduate with honors?
Yes.
Yeah, you guess. It would. Because maybe you want to go to grad school, or maybe you want to get a good job. I knew one student, I won't get into the details, but he went to a job fair, and he showed this company his resume, and they said, we won't even consider you. You need to have a GPA above something. He did really well for himself. But, so it's like, why do we need grades? So we can get a better job, ultimately. Right? Go to grad school, go to medical school, just get a job, whatever. Study harder, you get a better job. Why do you need a better job? For more money. You get more money, it's like, well, this is great. You live very frugally now and humbly, but you get a little money, it's like, I can buy a car. I'll buy a 12-year-old used car, it runs. I'll be really happy with that. But it's like, my boss offered me a chance, if I work a little overtime, I can make a little more money. I can buy a better car. And I'll finance it. I'll borrow some money. And I'm living in an apartment. It's okay, but that other apartment's a little bit nicer. Of course, it costs $500 more a month. But, I think I can afford it. I'll work a little harder. Maybe I'll get a promotion. And you get another promotion. Anyway, you can see where this is going. Pretty soon your time is completely usurped. And you can say, I am not enslaved. But on the other hand, what are you spending all of your time on? Is it enjoying the Lord? Is it pursuing the Lord? Is it contacting the Lord? Is it doing anything for the Lord? Or is it just all together, you're occupied? And, we have a lot of anxiety. I mean, I have anxiety, so I'm not immune. A lot of the anxieties, what are they related to? A lot of them are related to money. And this is just, the devil, he is not stupid. He is really clever. But if he can get you anxious, I'm a parent. My children are more or less grown. They're still my kids. I still worry about them. Now I got a grandchild. And when I was many years ago. My kids were little, and someone remarked to me, there's so much guilt placed on the parents. And it's like, your child's 4, he's not reading yet? You must be a bad parent. And at least you think that. I mean, I'm not making this up. Are you really doing the best for your children? When our first child was born, we had a vacuum cleaner salesman come. Not because we asked him, but anyway, and I was this guy was so good. I mean, he was really, really good. And the only thing that saved me from buying this vacuum is that my wife and I agreed in advance. He was going to give us like some, something for listening to him. That's why he came. We agreed under no circumstances are we going to buy this vacuum. He never, ever told us the price. He said, okay, how much do you make? What are your monthly expenses? And then he added some things in, okay, you'll go out to eat a few times and what. And at the end he says, you still have this much money. And I've already factored in the monthly payment for this vacuum, which you need because you love your child, don't you? And let me shine this bright light on and you can see all the dust particles. Do you want your baby breathing these things? What kind of parent are you anyway? You got to get this great filtration unit because you want to be a good parent. He was really good. We said no. I did want to know how much it cost. He never told us, like, this thing had to be a couple $1,000 for a vacuum cleaner. I mean, come on. But it was all together, appealing to our guilt. We want to be good parents. And you get anxiety. Oh, he's 3.5. He can only count to 25. What's wrong? I got to get him in a special course. Maybe I need to go see some specialists or something. I couldn't read till I was in 1st grade. That's what kids did when I was a kid. Peter, how old were you when you started reading? Yeah. And look at him. He's still alive. He's doing okay. You go to his house, he's got a big house, and, you haven't missed many meals, I don't think. Anyway, this is the way the world enslaves us. And it's very subtle, and you don't even realize it. So the children of Israel went to Egypt because they wanted food. In a sense, they turned their back on God. Rather than saying, Jehovah, please provide for us, it's like, we don't have any food. There's food in Egypt, let's go there. And they did. And they settled there. And then eventually, they started to multiply. And at that time, their brother Joseph was essentially the ruler in Egypt. He died. The people that knew Joseph died. And then it's like, look at all these Israelites. They might rise up against us, take over the nation. So we need to do something. So they put them under harsh circumstances, forced them to labor, and then there's still too many of them. So we need to kill their offspring, the males. And this is where we come into the story of Moses. So at this point, the male children, is commanded. Actually, they went to the midwives, the ones who would assist with the birth. And they said, if it's a male, kill him. If it's a female, midwives would not do that. And so they made up a very clever story why they said, they have the Hebrew women, we go there to help them give birth. They've already given birth, we can't do anything about it, which was a lie. But anyway, God blessed them for that. But at one point, it's like, you need to throw them into the river. So Moses, at this point, Israel's been in captivity for over 300 years, and they were crying out to Jehovah because the burden was very great. Why God didn't deliver them. And this is a very important principle we have to realize. God works through man. So God wanted to deliver them, but he had to have a deliverer. There's two ers in that. He needed, in a sense, a savior for Israel. In a way, Moses is a type of Christ. But Moses had to be prepared. And if you look at the whole story, the way God does things, we've got these kind of sayings, God works in mysterious ways. God works in very mysterious ways. You look back at it, and it's like, you mean for this to happen, that had to be arranged, and it had to be in this kind of environment, with that kind of person. Okay, the story of Moses. If you know this, I'm going to give you the 5-cent version. So Moses is born, and he does have an older brother and sister. The sisters are safe because they don't kill the girls. I don't know why his older brother Aaron wasn't killed, but anyway, maybe the midwives spared him. Moses is born, mom looks at him, beautiful baby. You can't kill your baby. You can't give your baby up to be killed. So what does she do? She says, I'm going to put him in a basket in the river. And you, older sister, probably Miriam, maybe you had other older sisters, I want you to watch. So that Moses is put into the river. This is the time. This wouldn't have happened 10 years earlier, who knows, 10 years later, but it happened right then. This, little boat floats down the river, and who should find it but Pharaoh's daughter? Of all the people in Egypt that could have found this thing, it was Pharaoh's daughter. I mean, she's, Pharaoh's daughter. And she opens it up and, oh, what a cute baby. And she can see, he's Hebrew. And it's like, I'm going to keep him. So right away, God has infiltrated the royal household. And then his sister, she must have been pretty clever. And, Pharaoh's daughter's like, I need someone to nurse him. And she appears and says, hey, I know someone. She's been watching the whole thing. And Pharaoh's daughter, I don't know if she wasn't very bright or what. She said, it's who? Go find someone, which is Moses' mother. So Moses is, brought up, for a few years at least by his own mother in Pharaoh's household. So if you read the account, I put the verses in Acts. Now, you all should be aware Acts is in the New Testament. But Acts chapter 7, Stephen, he was the first martyr in the New Testament. He gave just this marvelous kind of thumbnail history. And he hits all the high points. But it said, in verse 21, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nurtured him as a son for herself. And Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was powerful in his words and works. The Hebrews were not educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Moses, though, he's in Pharaoh's house. He had to know who he was. He had to know he was not an Egyptian. I mean, his mom's there. I think she said, hey, Moses, don't tell anyone, but you're really my son. Maybe she didn't tell him that. But anyway, it's, he knew. But he got educated. He was brought up, and it says he was powerful in his words and works. Underline that and just kind of burn that into your brain, because later, maybe not today, you got to come back next week. You'll see why this is like a contradiction. Seemingly. It says, when he was approaching 40 years of age, it came into his heart to visit his brothers, the sons of Israel. So he's 40 years old. Moses' life, he lived to be 120. And it's 3 periods of 40 years. So this is the end of the first period. He's an Egyptian in many ways, but he knows he's a Hebrew. So I'm going to go visit my brothers, see how they're doing. He probably knew they weren't doing that great. When he goes out, he sees some Egyptian was, abusing some Hebrew guy. And Moses, he's probably a tough guy, you know. Grew up, had the best food, the best trainers, best everything. I don't know what they did. And he kills this Egyptian. He probably had the thought, I'm here, I'm going to liberate my people. I've been raised up for this purpose. I mean, look at me. I'm Pharaoh's household. Who else but me? But he kills this Egyptian, and then he hides him. Because it's like, better not let anybody know about that. And in verse 25, it says, he supposed that his brothers understood that God through his hand was giving salvation to them. But they did not understand. And the next day, two of them were fighting, and he goes to them. These are two, Israelites. And he says, hey, guys, what are you fighting about? Don't do this. And the one who was wronging his neighbor said, who appointed you a ruler and a judge over us? Do you want to do away with me the same way you did away with the Egyptian yesterday? Moses is like, oh, they know. And so what did he do? He fled. If you read the account in Exodus, it's a little more detailed. It's like Pharaoh was going to kill him, so he got out. All this training, 40 years, down the tubes. And he didn't deliver his people. But Exodus, this is only like chapter 2. It doesn't end here. There's 40 chapters. Moses is the key figure in the whole Old Testament. The account of Moses' preparation, the account of Moses' calling, is the most detailed, thorough, longest account of anyone in the whole Bible. So this is all part of Moses' preparation. Now, let me ask you, how many of you are for the Lord? You can raise your hand or not, anyway. In your heart, how many of you would do anything for the Lord? Right? How many of you would take a bullet for the Lord? How many of you would try to prevent the Lord from being crucified? Julius, would you? Huh? Yeah. It's like, Jesus, no. They won't kill you. And even if they're going to, I'll stop them. And if I can't stop them, I'll die with you. I'm not making this up. This is Peter, right, in the New Testament. And then when push came to shove, Peter denied him. And he didn't deny him to a bunch of Roman soldiers with, they had their spears on him. We'll kill you if you were with Jesus. It's like, it says a maid, like a girl. And she says, I think you were with him. He says, I wasn't with him. No way. Earlier, he's like, Jesus, if I can't protect you, and God will protect you. But anyway, I will die with you. And this is all natural. Moses was going to deliver his people out of his natural strength. He clearly was educated. He had natural strength. He had ability. He must have been strong enough to kill someone. But our natural strength, our natural ability, has no divine element. Our natural strength, our natural ability does things according to its own will. Our natural strength, our natural ability seeks its own glory. It's like, I'm going to be super Christian. I want everybody to look at me. I'm doing this for God. And I can say all the glory goes to God, but actually I'm getting a lot of glory myself. And I might do things in such a way to bring attention to myself. It's like, anyway, I don't need to share those things. In the Christian realm, there's a lot of people serving God, doing things for God. And I just wonder, is God bigger than them, or are they bigger than God in people's eyes? Are they being elevated, or are they really turning everyone's attention to the Lord? So Moses, with all of his education, with all of his, ability, he couldn't deliver his people. And he had to flee Egypt, where he might have been the next ruler. We don't know. He could have been. He was in Pharaoh's household. He was a male. Instead, he goes out in the wilderness. So 40 years wasted, seemingly. Now, let me ask you a question. This will seem unrelated, but we'll tie it all together. It'll be very good. So tonight, I don't know if you heard, after this, we're going to have a prayer meeting. And we're going to pray all night. And when the sun rises tomorrow, we're going to hit this campus and we're going to speak the gospel to every person we can see. And once every person on this campus has been saved, we're going to go into the community. We're not going to stop until we do this. Who's with me? I got one. Come on. Who's with Isaac? I don't know if you're, Esther, you love the Lord, right? What, you don't love the Lord? Aaron. How many, we got all 4 Aarons? I don't know. You guys love the Lord, right? Aren't you going to do this? Aren't you for the Lord? Kevin's going to do it. I'm going to. Which is better? To go give everything to the Lord. Aren't you consecrated? Are you a backslidden Christian? Are you a chocolate soldier? Chocolate soldier, it's a little tract. You got to read it someday. Do you melt in the heat of battle? Or are you a man with backbone for God? Or are you a lollipop? I'll give you, that's choice number 1. Okay. Choice number 2 is you go back to your room and you study for your courses. And then tonight you go to bed at a regular time. Which one is more for the Lord? Come on, it's obvious. Esther, which one is more for the Lord? Second, I said study. I didn't say read the Bible. I didn't say pray. I didn't say go speak to people. You say second. I thought I could get a few more people. So it's going to be me and you, Kevin. Maybe we'll get Matt too. That's good. I'm glad you're excited for Kevin. Okay, Moses, 40 years. I'm going to set my people free, and fails miserably. He goes to the wilderness. Second period of 40 years. Not much detail. He becomes a sheep herder. And he works for Jethro, the priest of Midian, marries his daughter, has a couple kids. And then he's 80 years old. And Moses wrote one psalm, Psalm 90. If you ever read all the Psalms, you've read that one. Maybe you never noticed it. But one verse in there says, the days of our years are 70 years, or if because of strength, 80 years. And it says, their pride is labor and sorrow, for it is soon gone and we fly away. So by Moses' own estimation, he's 80. So he should be dead, right? He's like, men will live 70 years. If you're a little bit stronger, you'll make it to 80. He's 80 years old. He was powerful in his words and works, and now he's a shepherd. And we'll get into this later. But when he does, have some time with the Lord, and the Lord calls him, Moses said, I can't speak. I'm not a good speaker. What happened to powerful in words? Moses had no confidence that he could do it. What happened to powerful in works? 40 years of being in the wilderness just stripped him, seemingly, of all this ability. At least his natural strength was gone. Now God can use him. But you got to realize, he wasn't just an 80-year-old. There were probably a number of 80-year-olds at that time. God did not say, hey, you're 80. Come, follow me. I need an 80-year-old. No. Moses was the only one on the earth at that time who was raised up the way he was. And all the environment, all the circumstances led him to being in Pharaoh's house, to being educated, and all these things. This made him so useful, but not in his natural strength. These things had to be stripped away, and eventually, we'll get into this more later, eventually God can use it. But when it's motivated by your own desire, your own natural zeal, God can't use it. On Sunday we gave a little introduction and talked about the Apostle Paul. There were, at least 12 other apostles. The Apostle Paul, it's more than arguable. He was the top apostle. His training was very different than all the others, probably. Anyway, he was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He was blameless according to the law. He studied under the top teacher. But then we sang this song, forgetting the things which are behind. He said all these things that were like accomplishments that I thought were something great. He said now they're just dung. They're just dog food. They're garbage. But they didn't leave him. He didn't get converted. He didn't turn to the Lord. He didn't get saved and suddenly forget all the Bible studying that he had done. He knew the scriptures. But now, with the divine light, he could apply these in ways no one else could. God told the one who was going to baptize him. Because as Saul, he changed his name to Paul, he was the biggest persecutor of Christians. And then, the Lord appears in a vision to this guy named Ananias. He says, you need to go baptize Saul. He's like, whoa. Lord, I'll do what you say, but this guy, you know what he does? How many people he's killed? My buddies, my cousins, I don't know. And the Lord said, he's a chosen vessel to me. And he was, because he was a very particular one. So Moses was a chosen vessel, and he'd been trained in a certain way. Now, how about us? Okay, I already said don't be enslaved by the world. So that means we should not study, right? Because Satan's behind all that, right? Kevin, drop out of school, man. Let's just go pray and preach the gospel. And no. Some years ago, a number of years ago, quite a few years ago, a long time ago, there was some, I was not among them. They are all older than me. But there's a group of young brothers, and they got saved, and they just loved the Lord. And they loved to come together and pray and sing and enjoy the Lord and share the gospel and speak to their friends. They just loved doing that. They didn't want to do anything else. They needed to live. But it's like, okay, how much do I need to live? So one of them was a pizza delivery guy. Nothing wrong with being a pizza delivery guy. One of them was a swimming pool cleaner. One of them worked at a cookie factory. They're very good cookies. But anyway, it's just like, all I need is like minimum wage. Maybe not even 40 hours a week. I can survive. I don't want to cut into my time with the Lord. An older brother shared with them, it's like, if you want to be really useful to the Lord, you guys need to go back to school. And you need to get your college degree, and if possible, get a higher degree. And if possible, get 2 higher degrees. Why? So that you can be fully enslaved by the world? No. This will make you more useful to the Lord. So don't neglect your education, but don't let it enslave you. It's, some of us have degrees, multiple degrees, and it's like, but it's not the thing. The Lord is the thing. But trust me, the more education you get, as long as it doesn't consume you and usurp you and enslave you, it will help you. You go to college to learn things, but your mind gets trained. Don't let it get trained in godless things. But, just consider an extreme case. What if there's someone who's illiterate, cannot read? They can love the Lord. No problem. And I don't look down on them or judge them. They can share the Lord with their friends, but they're not going to study the Bible. And maybe they would actually have the intellect to do that, but they never learn how to read. So they're just limited. Peter was a fisherman and said it's noted he's an uneducated layman. But he could still speak for God, but not the way Paul could. Even in Peter's own epistle, he commended people to read Paul's epistles. He said, but they're kind of hard to understand. So he acknowledged Paul. Well, Paul had a different kind of training. So we need to be educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians without being enslaved. We need to, eventually, when they leave Egypt, they plunder it. They take all the riches for themselves, no, for God. So I'm going to stop here. I think I got everything. And we can break into some small groups, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, and we'll have a little more fellowship, and then we'll come back together and have some announcements. I don't know what all. So tonight, what should you do after this? Study.
Go to bed.
But make sure you don't miss your Bible study group. And make sure you come Sunday morning. And if you're in a home Friday night, be sure to do that. Don't neglect reading the Bible every day. Don't neglect spending some time with the Lord every day. This will save you from being enslaved. This will keep you grounded and focused while you study to become useful to the Lord.